Welcome to Planting, Painting, and Poetry. This is the beginning of a new adventure. So these three things, planting, painting, and poetry, are things that I love. And I can't exactly explain the impulse behind wanting to make a YouTube channel, other than I love these things and I want to share them with others. Maybe even meet other people and connect with people over the things that I love. So today we're going to repot a plant. I began planting mainly because I was stuck at home, alone. Except for Lisa. Lisa, my little chug, encouraged me to actually go outside. Don't ask why there's a bed in my backyard or a vacuum. But that's the kind of life I live. So anyways, in about 3 months, I ended up acquiring over 100 houseplants. This is from a girl, me, who has killed everything she has ever tried to own that was a plant. But somehow, during quarantine, I ended up watching 10,000 hours of other YouTubers who were planters. And I thought, maybe I can plant too. The first thing I learned about being a planter is that most of it is about learning from your failures. This is very, very similar to being an artist. Art is just one failure after another until something seems to come to life. So my first mistake as a newbie plant mom is that I was drowning all of my plants. So what happens is if you water your plants too much, it's not the water necessarily that kills them. It's the fact that there is no oxygen because the soil is too dense. So what you have to do is make a light and fluffy soil mixture. And that requires a lot of things I didn't know about, such as worm poop, orchid bark, perlite. Who knew about these things? These are basically the fluffy things that make it possible for plants to breathe. Lisa, my chug, loves to garden. In fact, she digs up all of my plants and puts them inside the couch. She's actually made more plants live in my couch than I have made plants live in pots. But I'm learning. And what I have learned most is that it's okay to fail. The only thing that happens is things die. I guess I should feel more upset about that. Well, okay, the other thing to know is you gotta let things go. So if you want some of the plant to live, sometimes you have to cut your biggest leaves off. So that's what I did. The fun part of being a planter is that you get to mix things up, dirty things, like perlite. Perlite is basically just fluff, white fluff. But it has lots of oxygen. It'll keep your plants from suffocating. You know what suffocates a plant? Love. I fuss over my plants day and night. So day and night, I'm sticking my fingers into their soil. It's as dirty as it sounds, in all the ways it sounds dirty. And I try to see if they're wet or not. And then I'm never thinking that they're wet enough. So then I drown them, which means I need lots and lots and lots of perlite, the fluffy stuff that adds oxygen, so I don't suffocate things with love. You can see how this has been really educational on why I'm single. This is potting mix, the stuff that can suffocate your plant. But I still insist on putting it in because it feels like giving someone mashed potatoes. This is orchid bark. Again, it is something that will keep you from suffocating your plants with love. It's just big chunks of earth. It's not even earth, excuse me. It's like pieces of trees. Because it turns out, guess what plants don't need? Soil. Oh, I love this. This stuff, this is worm castings. It's a giant bag of, oh, I'm getting nervous. That's okay, I'll get over it. It's a giant pot of worm poop. See, I was nervous to tell you how much I love worm poop, or that I spend all of my days with my hands inside bags of worm poop. But now you know. Again, a reason I'm single. All right, this is the fun part. You mix it all together. I can't cook either, or bake. This is apparent in how I can't even put together a soil concoction. Thank goodness I don't have to bake this. I just have to mix it up. Lisa is criticizing my mixing. I'm not a good mixer. But I love it. I love sticking my hands inside of worm poop and soil and fluffy white perlite and orchid bark. It kind of makes me feel like I'm doing something. Maybe I started doing this because usually, well, I guess it's still true, I'm a teacher and I have 200 students to take care of. And I'm still taking care of 200 students, but not in the classroom, not like I normally do. Normally, there's a lot of dirty work being a teacher, a lot of snot. You don't want to know about that. But you do. You take care of kids because they need to be taken care of. But now the kids are far, far away in Zoom land, and I need something that's a little more, I don't know, in the world. Nothing says in the world like roots. I am fascinated by the root structure of plants, and I'm sad that I overwater them and turn their root systems into mushy, scarred balls of oozing goo. That's pretty much what happened here. Well, it's also like root locked. That's when your plant was in a pot that was too small for its roots necessarily, so it gets all jammed together. So you kind of have to massage it out so it can get free and loose with itself. Most plants don't want to be loose with themselves. You kind of have to encourage them. Maybe another reason why I am single. I like to get to the roots of things, and roots usually like to be left alone. But I'm just gonna, pull these roots apart and then put it in a pot and then tell myself every day not to water it. Don't water it. Don't water it. Don't water it. Don't water it. Look at that whole world that we never even see. That's the other problem with me. I always want to take things out of their pots and see what they look like where it really matters. I kind of do the same thing with people. I don't mean to. It's just so interesting what's underneath. So then you take people out of their pots, you put your fingers in their roots, and then they feel, well, kind of like you violated them a little bit. I never meant to violate anything. I just got curious about what's inside the pot. I just want to put some earthworm castings inside those roots. And some potatoes, which is really soil, and some oxygen. Yep. I'm really afraid of breaking these roots, but I can't stop myself from wanting to pull them apart. I know better. You can see it on my face that I know better, but I keep on pulling it apart. I don't know about you, but sometimes I do this with myself as well. This is one of the problems of being left at home by yourself during quarantine. Constantly kind of pulling yourself apart when you really should probably just leave some of that alone. But look how cool it is, deep, deep inside of there. I don't even know what these parts are. Maybe the plant needs that part. I'm just going to throw it away anyways. Obviously, this might be issues of control. Isn't it funny the way we care for things? We just seem to want to rip them apart to make them better. This is probably not a good idea, and yet I keep on doing it. My students make fun of the way I say idea. I think I have an accent. I even went to fancy acting school to get rid of it. I studied standard American English for hours, and still, I can't say certain words, like idea. All right, so now I'm going to try to mix this, because I can't stop myself from mixing things. That's true of this show too. I'm going to try to mix planting with painting and poetry, because I honestly think that all things go together like that. all things mixed together. When I think about the roots of things, I also think about the roots of language. The etymology of roots actually is super interesting. It actually translates to penis, which is maybe not so interesting other than the fact that what they mean by penis is origins. And what they mean by origins is the cause of things, what causes things to be. I don't know the cause of things being, but I can't help myself from making them, or trying to remake them, or repot them, or rethink them, or reshape them. I don't think I'm entirely alone in this. I think most of us are trying to figure out how to love better, how to make better, how to be better people in a world that we seem to be destroying and then fertilizing with warm castings. So funny how that works. Tear something apart in order to put it back together better. That's a weird impulse. It's a weird impulse to take a tropical plant and try to make it grow in the desert. But look how happy I am doing it. I'm going to make this tropical plant grow in a place that it shouldn't be at all. That's complicated. I like complicated thoughts. I like to take complicated thoughts and see how far I can push them. That makes me feel very busy. Things aren't really that busy. Plants are teaching me that. Plants are also teaching me it's okay to be beautiful for the sake of just being beautiful and to try that. Oh, that's rubbing alcohol. You know why you need rubbing alcohol? Is because plants are babies. The second you hit them with anything that's like a bacteria or anything, it like swallows it up and then it gets sick. Plants like to be divas. But I also like plants because they also show us like how tenacious and at the same time how fragile we all are. Think about it. In this time of COVID, we're all so tenacious and living through this difficult time, most of us. But at the same time, we're all susceptible to disease, to injury. Everything wants so badly to live, and there's all these things that get in the way of living. The fun thing about planting is you feel like you're kind of in control of making life just a little bit better. Of course, this might all be absolutely delusional, but at the time, it's really therapeutic. Almost meditative. I also like the risk involved. I am really afraid of hurting this plant. It's bad to think of plants as being like people, but I can't help myself sometimes. In fact, I think they're better than people. They'll last longer than us, hopefully. So I don't know what to do. How much of a plant do you cut away so that it can live a better life? Maybe I'm asking myself that question. I'm just taking it out on the plant. Maybe. See, me packing in that soil, it's a bad idea. I did all that work to make fluffy soil, and now I'm packing it in so the plant will suffocate again. I need to rethink this. I'll rethink it later. Same problem. Plants are a little bit like us. So they like to be all cozy and tight inside their pots. But the truth is sometimes they outgrow their pots. They need to be transplanted into something larger. But they don't like it. None of us like that. We like to grow, but we don't like to change. And we like to be cozy. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to tear this plant apart. Right now, I'm thinking about splitting this plant in two so that I can get 2 plants for the price of 1. Did you know how much plants cost? It's ridiculous. I'm trying not to be upset about it because you are buying and selling life, which should be worth a lot. Oh my gosh, that gets complicated too. When you think about how cheap a hooker is versus how much a plant is, we pay way more for plants than we do people. Though I do think that the transaction is really about how to acquire more life in your life. This is called a philodendron. It's an aroid plant. Yeah, that means that it has like roots in the air that attach to like walls. Not really walls. That's what they do inside your house. If this is actually where it belongs, it would attach to a giant forest canopy. I think part of the reason why we have these plants in our house is because we recognize the fact that we've burned down most of the forest. I don't mean to be depressing. This is supposed to be a show about, well, what is this a show about? It's a show about plants, painting, and poetry. So here's some plants. Later on, we're going to meet with artist Marthe Aponte, who, oddly enough, spent at least 4 years studying with the philosopher of language Derrida. It's kind of interesting to see how these things go together. Marthe makes art because of plants, and she studied language with Derrida. You put all these things together, and you have a lot to write about. More alcohol. Clean your scissors if you're ever going to cut your plants apart. Here's another trick that I learned. I learned this from a group of florists, actually. If you're going to cut the leaves of your plants, do it with wet scissors. It'll actually keep it from bruising and getting more brown around the edges. All right, same process all over again. You would think I would get bored, but I don't. All I do is watch people do this on YouTube all day long. It feels so good to watch other people plant things. And then I get excited, and I go outside and I plant things. There's a lot to learn from failure. I'm not sure if I'm doing this so I know how to love people better. Right now, I think plants is about all I can handle. But I must want people in my life too, because I'm making a YouTube channel, which means I'm talking to you who I don't know, but assume that we'll be friends. Silly the things we assume. But I think we will be friends. I promise not to overwater you. Well, that's a bad promise. I promise to repot you if I overwater you. Funny how we want to curate everything to be perfect. This is something I need to learn, especially as a teacher. I don't need to make everything perfect for it to be beautiful. I really think by cutting away all of the mistakes from this plant, it'll make people think I'm a better plant lady. The kind of plant lady that puts warm castings on everything. The funny thing is, I'm going to keep all of the leaves that I cut off because I find the leaves that are dying just a little bit to be actually more beautiful than those perfect leaves that I'm trying to fool people into believing I made. I didn't make any of these plants. These plants are just surviving me.
Start with the planes.
I'm not the only one making this. That's Anthony. I'm really hopeful that Anthony will not edit that part out. That was mean. That's just me trying to love him, but in bad ways. Goodbye.